Even though the moon has always been with us throughout history, it's still a huge mystery. Scientists can't explain how the moon was formed in the first place, its strange orbit, its structure, and its exact composition. Some theories attempt to answer some questions, but none have all the answers. The only theory answering all scientific questions about how the moon came here is that the moon might be hollow and wasn't originally from here. It was brought by someone else. Let's find out. Now, let's start from the very beginning. You know, the moon has been here with Earth for a long time. But when it comes to how it formed, scientists don't have a clear answer. They have some theories, but it's still a bit controversial. The first idea about how the moon got connected to Earth is the capture theory. So, back in the day, some folks thought that the moon was basically captured by Earth, just like how Jupiter grabbed some of its moons. But as it turns out, this theory's difficult to believe. Firstly, if the moon was actually snatched by Earth, it would be moving in a stretched out elliptical orbit. But no, when we looked at its orbit, it's almost like a perfect circle. Secondly, the moon is much larger than most other moons in space. Trying to grab such a big moon and pull it into Earth's orbit would be like hitting the jackpot twice, so it's impossible. Another explanation is co-accretion theory, that the moon and Earth came to existence at the same time from the same stuff, out of dust clouds in the early solar systems. But here's the tricky part if this were true. The moon's core should be similar to Earth's, with lots of iron. But when we checked, the moon's core doesn't have as much iron as Earth's. And also, the moon is slowly moving away from us. It's like if we could go back in time, it might seem as if the moon was actually born from Earth. Now that's a story that starts to make sense. And this is the fission theory. During the beginning of the early solar system, the Earth was spinning extremely fast, and the Earth was super hot and molten, and a part of it just broke off to become the moon. But this theory also didn't hold up for a couple of reasons. First, instead of having one big moon, it would mean we should have had a bunch of smaller moons, like a ring of them, around Earth. And if the moon did come from Earth, these smaller moons would keep flying away and then crashing back down, making it hard for them to stay in a stable orbit. Instead, what's way more believable is that the moon was born from a massive crash between Earth and another space object. And this is the most famous one, the giant impact theory. About 4.5 billion years ago, our young Earth had a huge crash with a Mars-sized protoplanet. Boom! It created a big mess, with debris flying all over the place, and our moon was born. But now, new discoveries are shaking things up. Scientists found that the debris from the collision would rain back down on Earth instead of staying in orbit and forming the moon. To make it work, the impactor would need to be 3 times the size of Mars. And now, there's a recent theory that combines all of this. It suggests that the moon might have formed from a special kind of cloud called a synestia. Synestia is like a donut-shaped cloud made of spinning rock and dust. It forms when 2 big objects crash into each other in space, creating a hot and swirling cloud around a molten center. As time passes, the clouds start to come together due to gravity, and it eventually becomes a planet. The idea is still not proven to be 100% true. I mean, come on, the donut-shaped theory is just computer simulations and theoretical models. We need real proof, right? Not just fancy CGI space videos.
Now, they had to come up with a very bizarre theory for how the moon came into being, because all the conventional theories don't make any sense.
So, we still aren't sure how the moon was made. But you know what? Instead of providing clear answers, these ideas have actually raised more questions. Some things don't quite fit together. Look, if the moon was made from the leftovers after a big object hit Earth, this collision would have created massive heat, which could have melted a big part of the moon inside. As that molten rock cooled down and turned solid, it might have created a solid outer layer with an empty space inside. It's like the moon got a solid shell with a hollow center. Even the rocks and soil samples brought back from the moon tell a similar story. On Earth, older rocks are usually found deeper underground, and younger ones are on the surface. But on the moon, it's the opposite. Younger rocks are deeper, and older ones are on the top. We can imagine doing the reverse on Earth by drilling or mining to bring older rocks from the bottom to the surface. This makes the moon seem like it's been hollowed out, with its older rocks on the outside. But the list of strange things goes on. On most planets like Earth, the materials inside the planet become denser, heavier, as you go deeper towards the center, and they become lighter as you get closer to the planet's surface. But interestingly, the moon behaves differently. Inside the moon, the materials become lighter as you go towards its center, and they get denser as you move closer to its surface. The moon's surface has many marks from asteroid hits over billions of years. We'd expect the rocks near these marks to be different ages, but strangely, they all seem the same age. The Earth is 4.6 billion years old, but the oldest rock we've found on Earth is much younger than that. The rocks we found on the moon are much older, some dating back to the beginning of the solar system, and even some beyond that. We found uranium-236 and neptunium-237 on the moon. It's crazy, because they're not something you just stumble upon naturally. The only time we see these radioactive elements is when we create them. They're super rare and man-made, like we've only seen them coming out of nuclear reactors and in the aftermath of nuclear explosions. Titanium, chromium, and helium-3 are tough metals that don't rust. Yet they're hard to find on Earth but plentiful on the moon. It's weird, because if the moon and Earth were born together, why such a difference? And about the craters, even though the moon has super strong metals, why are the craters deeper than those on Earth? Even if they're the same width as those on Earth, it's backwards. So, if we had some kind of device on the moon, we could check for moonquakes. This would help answer our questions and test if the moon is really hollow. Luckily for us, some did. The Apollo 12 astronauts and the scientists at NASA wanted to see if the moon had these quaking-type behaviors like on Earth, called moonquakes, and what kind of resonances does it have, and are those related to its inner structure. They purposely sent their unneeded ascent stage model crashing into the moon. When the module hit, scientists back on Earth were all eyes on the seismic data. But instead of what they thought they'd see, the signal started bouncing around inside the moon like a ringing bell, and this bell ringing went on for a whole hour. No one could figure out why the moon rang like a bell. This unexpected discovery shook everyone up. If the moon rang like a bell and the vibrations lasted way longer than we'd expect, does that mean the moon's insides are different than Earth's? Could the moon be hollow? After all, the bell-like ringing would only make sense if there were big empty spaces inside the moon, where the shockwaves could echo for hours. So, the question now is, did the Apollo 12 mission find out that the moon might be hollow? As wild as it sounds, some scientists think it could be true. And during Apollo 13, they smacked an even bigger object into the moon. This time, the moon rang like a bell for over 3 hours, and these vibrations dug deep, around 20 miles down. Now, that doesn't happen on Earth. Here, the vibrations only last a few minutes because Earth is denser. Plus, on Earth, the vibrations slow down as they go deeper towards the center, which is the densest part. But on the moon, the vibrations actually picked up speed about 40 miles down. This might mean that the inside of the moon isn't just less dense than Earth, but might have a big empty space. Besides the issue of its unusual density, the moon has many strange characteristics and coincidences that are hard to explain through ordinary natural processes. We don't see these features anywhere else. The moon is more like a dead planet that never fully developed, and no other object in our solar system or any other known solar system has such a large moon. The inside of the moon could be mostly empty because it may have skipped a step called differentiation. This is when heavier stuff sinks to the center of a planet and lighter stuff floats up to the top, making it seem like there's empty space inside. The moon's path around the Earth is almost a perfect circle, which is strange for a natural moon. And also, the moon's gravity doesn't line up with how big it is, which could mean there are big hollow areas inside the moon. Is this just a coincidence?
The odds of the moon being in that orbit accidentally are 1,000,000,000 to 1. So that right there is evidence that our moon is in a perfect orbit around our planet that's not accidental.
In 1970, 2 Soviet scientists studied all these pieces of evidence and coincidences. They reached what they believed was the only logical conclusion, even though it seemed unbelievable. They proposed not only is the moon hollow, but it's also a spacecraft that arrived here in the distant past. Now, the questions we need to ask is who brought the moon and why? Ancient stories describe a time when the sky was without a moon. Both Roman and Greek authors from the 5th century BC tell stories about Proselynes, a people from a region known as Arcadia. These stories say that the Proselynes lived before the moon was in the sky. Sumerians, another ancient people, also had interesting ideas. They believed that the moon was put in the sky by 2 god brothers, Enlil and Enki. These gods were known as the Anunnaki, who created mankind. The Sumerians thought that Earth was very different before the moon came. They believed there were no seasons, and a layer of water vapor covered the whole planet. Because of this, the sun would have looked like a dim light through the mist, and when the moon finally settled into its orbit, all this water vapor fell at once, causing a huge worldwide flood. You know, it's kind of crazy how all these different cultures have similar stories that line up with each other, and the weird coincidences, they just keep piling up. So, all these crazy stories and legends plus weird coincidences and freaky anomalies start to stack up into a pretty convincing theory that the moon is hollow, is a spacecraft, and was brought here by ancient alien gods long ago.
There are so many peculiarities about the way the moon has affected the Earth that one might be forgiven for believing that there is intelligence behind it, that something made it that way. Could such things have come about by chance? Was it placed there deliberately? Was it engineered? Maybe by aliens? And therefore, is our whole existence a planned event?
Well, we've got no actual proof that the Anunnaki ever landed on the moon. Coincidences aren't proof either, so we need to check out what's going on with the moon lately to get strong proof for our ideas. Good thing is, the evidence is there. Scientists tell us the moon is a big empty rock in space with no life. But for a place that's supposed to be lifeless, there's a heck of a lot happening on the moon. In March 1971, a cloud of water vapor showed up on the moon out of nowhere and covered a whole 100 square miles, and it stayed there for more than 10 hours before fading away. It's weird, the moon ain't supposed to have an atmosphere, but for those hours, it did. Near the Copernicus crater, a unique transparent dome that towers above the crater's edge was found. The dome is unusual as it's glowing white and blue from the inside. The boulder tracks were seen on the moon, all over the place, and that's weird enough, but what the heck is this? It looks like a vehicle track? How did these boulder tracks get there? And why are they so perfectly parallel? But things get even more strange. There are tons of photos of what seem to be artificial objects on the moon's surface. Towers reaching miles into the sky, pyramids and structures that are really symmetrical, Plus, there's this rectangle spot between a factory and the Copernicus crater, 300 meters wide and 400 meters long. These images have been captured by astronomers, space probes, and even the astronauts themselves. The crew from Apollo 10 even took a picture of this huge object called the castle. It's a mile long, sits 14 kilometers high, and casts a big shadow on the moon. This is the photo I would like to learn more about, but I can't. It no longer exists. During a meeting with NASA scientist Richard Hoagland, a specialist in lunar studies, asked for the original pictures of the castle, but they were nowhere to be found. They were even gone from the Apollo 10 crew images list. Well, good luck finding those missing pictures. A mission control expert talked about these photos, saying,
"Our team saw pyramids, domes, weird tracks, and God knows what else. As of now, all those pictures are locked up tight in NASA's safes."
Right after landing on the moon, the Apollo 11 crew said they saw something that really shook them up. Just watch their press conference when they got back. They looked so uncomfortable, sad, and even scared. Why? Could it be that the Apollo crew found something that ancient cultures knew about ages ago? Ugh, enough with these mysteries, they just keep going. Some scientists say the only answer to all these weird things is that the moon is not what we've been told. The moon is hollow, and it was brought here from somewhere else far away. Alright, let's see what science has to say about the hollow moon theory, because some of us aren't surprised, and some of us are skeptical. At the end of the day, knowledge is power, and control of information is key. So, we still aren't sure how the moon was formed, so science lost, theory won. Look, the big planet hit Earth idea has issues. We thought the moon, made from the big planet's debris, would look like that planet, not Earth. So, the giant impact theory might be off. We can't prove it, but it seems plausible, right? The moon's rock age problem. It's because of constant meteorite hits messing up the moon's surface over time. This created a thick layer that makes it hard to tell the age of underlying rocks. The structures that look like pyramids and towers are said to be simply due to optical illusions or tricks of light and shadow. And those parallel boundary tracks, they're the marks left by a wheeled vehicle, Lunokhod 1, sent by the Soviets in 1970. And those Anunnaki myths, it'd be pretty cool to look at moon photos from different times and see when those supposed Anunnaki tracks first showed up on the lunar surface. And those guys' faces at the press conference. Maybe the moon landing really happened, but they stumbled upon something they had to keep secret. So, they might have just created a film instead. Indeed, we've managed to figure out some of the weird stuff happening on the moon. But with so many baffling anomalies still out there, we can't say we've got it all sorted. There's still a whole lot of lunar mystery left to unravel. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. My name is L. Laureate. If you enjoyed our interaction or gained any knowledge, I would greatly appreciate it if you could support me by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. Until next time, stay safe and be kind.